And one of the things that I try to tell owners to do, and you could take any product or service and do this with, sell the burger, not the cheese. So if the burger costs you $3 and the cheese costs you 10 cents, don't charge people $15 for the burger and then 20 cents for the cheese. Just charge people $16, give them the cheese, give them the mayo, give them the bacon. And then that way they're getting more for their value. And then if you really want to take this thinking to the next level, you need to get good at a la carte value proposition.
We're going to be talking about value stacking. Now, if this is a concept that you've heard before, I still want you to stay tuned and listen to this episode because there are some ideas and some nuggets that today's guest actually presents that blew my mind. And I listen to a lot of sales podcasts. So get ready to take some notes. If you're in the car, that's okay. We're going to have all these notes available for you in our show notes on our website. But get ready to listen to Chris Fresh, the owner, the founder of the Plumbing Sales Coach. And don't let the name fool you. This applies regardless of the business. In fact, he's got some great examples. Hey, Chris, welcome back to the show.
Hey, how you doing, Ryan? I'm glad to be back.
I'm great. For those of you who don't know, Chris has actually been on the show before. Him and I have worked on collaborating with things. Great guy, super knowledgeable, such a giver. So I'm excited for today's episode because I know you're going to give a ton of value on today's show. As in true Talent Tackle Box fashion, I want to start with that first question. What's that mindset shift that you want people to make by listening to today's show? Another way to ask it is, what's that myth that you want to shatter for them?
Yeah, just the main thing here is that deals can be created without discounts, meaning that we can show people value, even structure our price book, structure our sales process, structure so many things inside of our company that will showcase the value in a customer's mindset that doesn't always have to be discounted down for customers to see that gap between what they're paying and what they're getting. And ultimately, that's what we're really after, right? Is getting customers to feel good about their purchase, feel good about the value that they got for that purchase, and get excited about it and tell others. And even so much so they're telling other people, hey, you should take advantage of this deal or this offer or this service. And that's what we're after.
So many people get caught up in this idea, I've got to give discounts, I got to lower my price because it's the easiest way to sell. And I remember someone telling me real early on in business, you cannot give discounts to family, friends, past customers because the people that don't like you are never going to come around to pay you full price. So you have to find a way to get your current customers to pay.
That is so gold. The other thing I found too is, quite honestly, discounting down your services can make the sale harder. You're typically dealing with a different type of person in the way that they purchase. And so you've gone down to that price, that price battle, that price war. And first of all, even if I could teach you how to be good at that war, that's not a war you want to be in. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's what certain people are doing. There are certain products and certain price points for certain people. And that's one way to do business. But I prefer the value model, the model where my prices are more expensive than others. But what you get from me is so much greater than what you could get from anyone else. I don't get those price complaints. That's the model I want for my business. That's the model I want for your business. That's the model I want for your customer.
Yeah, that's a great call out right there, because the kind of people that you attract with discounted pricing and bargain shoppers and all that other stuff, I think about the clothing industry. Like, they have totally screwed themselves from now until forever. I will never pay full price for something because I know all I got to do is get to Memorial Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and all the clothes are going to be on sale. My wife thinks the exact same way.
There's so many truths to this and so many levels too. And so once you enter into that game, it's a slippery slope. You almost have to reinvent yourself over and over and over again to restart that higher price point. So what I mean by that is a second model to a product or an additional service or a new service. Next thing you know, you're trying to be all things to all people, and it just never works out. You're great at nothing and good at some things.
Yeah. So a lot of the people listening here are going to be struggling with people. One of the biggest challenges that I think companies have in business, and one of the things I often hear is, I can't afford to hire someone new. I can't afford to do it. But what you're talking about with this value idea is about giving us real profit margins, real net income that we can use to further invest in our business, grow our teams, those kinds of things. So tell us, how do we do this? How do we make this shift in our business?
First of all, can I just go back 1 second and say that this concept we're going to talk about today, what I'm going to teach you guys today, anyone that's listening, if you're an owner, you're a salesperson, you're just an employee, look, this works in parenting. This works in business. This works in all facets of life, because we have to remember we are people dealing with people, whether the community is of business or the community is of family. We are people with people. And so we just have to remember that. And that's why this works. But there is a concept of something called value stacking. I learned the concept myself from someone else on the internet. And quite honestly, the way they apply it is strictly in a marketing form. But the concepts behind it started to kind of open me up. Now, I'm a person who loves people, studying personality profiles, different types of people. And what I've learned is there are definitely different delivery mechanisms that can affect the engagement that someone has with your message, whether that be the way that you're talking to them, the way that you're advertising to them, whatever that interaction looks like. But when it comes down to these three principles, they work universally. Now, you talked about employee retention. This concept works when it comes to retaining employees. This concept works when it comes to getting new customers. This concept works when it comes to getting current and past customers to maybe do more with you, spend more with you, and get excited about more. One of the industries that I live in constantly is the plumbing, the service plumbing industry. I'm the plumbing sales coach, and I coach plumbing companies all across the world, and that's what we focus on mostly is service plumbing. But when you talk to a customer in a situation, no one wants to spend that money. So we get customers that complain about price, and then we get other customers who are raving fans. And so what's that difference? What's going on there that separates the two? Because nobody wakes up in the morning and wants to call a plumber. No one wakes up in the morning and gets excited about spending money on something they didn't even know that they typically even have or is broke. So how do we apply all that? Well, there's three elements to this that we really have to understand. The first one is relationship. In order to value stack, in order to get people to want to do more with you, you have to establish relationship. And it doesn't always have to be in the personal format. I believe that is the purest and greatest form, but it can be with a product. There's a statement out there, Ryan, that says, and you've heard it before, you got to know, like, and trust the person before you can buy from them.
Sure.
You've ever heard that?
Absolutely.
It's actually not true.
Oh.
What it is you have to know, like, and trust the result of whatever you're getting. Now, sometimes that applies to people. I'll explain. If you're buying gasoline, you do not need to know, like, and trust the attendant that works inside the building that rings you up for the gas, or you actually nowadays you won't even experience them because they'll be inside, you'll be outside, and you'll pay at the pump. But what you do need to know is you need to know, like, and trust the fact that gasoline gets you where you want to go. Okay? You have to know, like, and trust the product. Now, for that attendant to ring me up, there has to be zero relationship. But for that attendant to convince me to go from unleaded to premium unleaded, well, now there needs to be a relationship, because now I'm going to take advice from someone. So in order to truly value stack, in order for you to truly benefit someone or even get someone to consider a different thing, service, product, whatever it is, you have to establish relationship. That's the first one. So we misunderstand how that plays out. So let's say you're somebody that doesn't get a lot of interaction with your client. Maybe you're selling something on the internet, or you're selling something where there's less physical touch with you and the client. You have to understand this idea of value stacking as it relates back to the product or service more than it relates to the person. Now, where are some areas that we've seen this play out in the real world? What are some products that you can think of right now, Ryan, that have just taken off, and yet there's no salespeople, there's no one around? Can you think of any?
The first one that popped in mind was like the ride sharing, like Uber and Lyft and that kind of stuff.
So how many of us know, like, and share, know, like, and share? You mentioned ride sharing. How many of us know, like, and trust the Uber driver that we're getting? We don't even know who that person is until after we've already accepted the ride, right? Or asked for the ride. So there has to be a reality of disconnect between you and the service and you and the person. But to get a tip, to get a good quality tip, you see how this all plays out? So we have to start thinking about relationship in unique and different ways. Yes, we have to establish relationship with our employees and our customers. But man, when we start looking at our employees as customers and we start realizing that this is people serving people, well, it gets bigger than that. Mm-hmm. We have to start establishing that relationship with our brand and our product. Look, at the end of the day, it's this simple. The better you are at building relationship, in the transactional state, whether it be between the customer and the salesperson, or the customer and the product, the more they're able to buy and the more excited they are to do it. So relationship is the first one. We actually teach several different ways to establish relationship for people who aren't good at that kind of a thing. I can give you guys a quick one, which is just the method of ICE. Identify, connect, engage. Identify something you have in common with this person, connect it to a memory, and then engage that person with a story or that memory. And that's a great way to establish a commonality in a relationship with someone. It could be a shirt they're wearing. It could be a flag hanging outside their house when you pull up. It could be something that they said in conversation with you in the very beginning. Could be an accent, could be a lot of different things. But you pick up on those things that you have commonalities with people typically all the time. We just need to apply it. So identify, connect, engage. Identify something you have in common, connect that to a memory, and then engage them with that story. And that's really just a quick, simple method to establish a relationship with people as you're getting to know them and going to be offering advice to them on whatever product or service that you're suggesting to them.
I love ICE, and I love that you've created a process around this, something that's easy to remember, something that's really simple to do. Because for a lot of people listening right now, they're thinking, yeah, I already know this, but how do I give the tools to my team so they can go do it too? And for those of you who don't know, I mean, that's his secret sauce. That's what he does. That's his bread and butter, is he works directly with the technicians to help them sell better by giving them some of these tools. And so I love that you're able to break that down and like, here's a simple way: identify, connect, and engage on building that relationship. You said there were 3 things. What's the second one?
Well, the second one is diagnosing. And I think this is where we really miss the mark. We oftentimes get locked or lost even into whatever it is the solution of the product that we offer is directly impacting the problem. A great example would be a dentist maybe focusing on the teeth, maybe a plumber focusing on the plumbing, a mechanic focusing on the car, an insurance rep focusing on the insurance or the thing that's causing the need for insurance. But we oftentimes forget to diagnose the customer, the person. Why do they want insurance? Why do they want a new car? Why do they want a car fixed? Why do they want plumbing? What are they after? In plumbing, for example, someone may have a leak on a toilet. Well, 3 different customers could have that same leak and have a different reason for calling. One may just want it to work. Another may want to protect their hardwood floors, and so forth and so on. And so we all have different reasons that get us to call. These are our value sets, by the way. I'll give you guys another key one that we teach inside the trainings, and that is, what's your concern? What's concerning you most? That's usually a question I like to ask customers, because a lot of times if I'm offering insurance, I'm offering roofs, I'm offering plumbing, I'm offering electrical, my customer has a disadvantage. They are not educated not only in the language of my industry, but the knowledge of my industry. They're not an expert. I am. That's why they called me.
Yeah.
So I have to realize that about them. So asking them fact-based questions, like, what do you want in your insurance? What doesn't your current insurance have? They don't know. They don't know the answer to those questions. But here's what they do know. They know what's concerning them: the price, the inability to get a hold of someone in the office. Let's say we'll just hone in on insurance for a second. Maybe it's the service. Maybe it's the coverage.
Sure.
Maybe it's the claims adjuster they just experienced finally actually having to use the insurance. And so we need to understand what it is that customer is actually after. So when I say diagnose, I mean, yeah, we need to ask what they like and didn't like about the old products and what they want and don't have and maybe don't like about the new products. But we need to understand why they're even there to begin with. Why are we in front of them? And that's a big one, because once you understand the person, you've got a relationship, you've got a little bit of influence, you've established yourself as someone more than just a plumber, more than just an insurance person. By the way, when you do ICE, when you identify, connect, engage, you take yourself out of the box of sales rep, insurance rep, roofer, plumber, and you put yourself in the box of, I'm also a community member. I'm also a parent. I'm also someone that goes to the same stores as you. I'm also someone who drives the same roads as you. When you make that connection with people, it helps them now take in what you're saying more appropriately. Their ears are open. So now that you start diagnosing these problems, not only do they feel like they know you, but now they feel like you understand them. And this is a perfect recipe for setting yourself up to give someone advice. Who do we get advice from? People who we trust and people who understand us and our situations. That is what we're trying to do.
When you said diagnosing, I'm like, oh, great. Here we go. It's going to be all technical. How do we diagnose the situation? And there wasn't a single ounce of technicality in what you did.
No.
As far as doing my service, it was about how are we still connecting with the individual? to me, it was building on the relationship, not disconnecting from it and going a different route, which I think is what happens so often.
Value stacking, not value proposition. And this is the main shift that I really want your listeners, anyone right now, if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, wait, you know what? This is starting to make some sense here. We're going to make a major dynamic shift in the way that we proposition this value.
Stop turning away work, burning out your team, and working so hard. Learn about the proven process that businesses everywhere are using to save time, save money, and hire all the people they need. We'll train your team to implement and run this process in-house so you can grow as fast as you want. Book a call with our team at corematters.com.
Because we're not. You just nailed it, Ryan. We're stacking it. It's built. We're building upon something. Look, something I learned a long time ago. Nobody is selling barbecue bacon burgers. No one is. Now you're like, yeah, they are. No, they're not. No, they're not. I know they offer them, but hear me out on this. Everybody's selling burgers. They just stack the value differently. One's a barbecue bacon burger. One's a California burger with an egg and an avocado on it. One's a fiesta burger with salsa. And at the end of the day, they're just selling you a $20 burger and you feel good about it. You feel good about your $20 burger because it's got so much extra value on it, right?
It's so funny you say that. I was just out and I was like, hey, can we do a double burger? They're like, yeah, it's an extra $3 for the extra patty. And I'm like, you charged me $18 for the first patty and all the extra stuff and only $3 for the extra patty.
And they made money on the extra patty.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
They made money.
But they made a ton of money on that first burger I buy. But I paid $18 for it willingly because I wanted the fried egg on it. I wanted the salsa on it. I wanted the extra fancy cheese.
And you know what? You take the salsa off yours and I'll take the egg off mine. And guess what? We're still both going to pay $18. That's why I know that it's not about the egg.
Yep.
It's about the burger.
Yeah.
They wanted $18 for the burger. You can either take all the stuff we give you or don't take all this. We don't care. Pizza parlors have been doing this forever, right?
Yeah.
Pizza parlors, think about all the different ways that they stack their ingredients. To build your own is way more expensive than you take their specialty pizza. So the specialty pizza's got so much value.
Yeah. So what's the third thing?
Okay, that's what we're going to get into. Value proposition. Now, here's the dynamic shift. A lot of times what we're taught is to exchange value, right? Proposition value for that service. And we do that in several different ways. For example, I might say our lettuce is extremely fresh. Our eggs are from a farm. Okay, these are great ways to build value. This is called features versus benefits. We want the customer to understand the benefit, not the feature. I don't care how the egg got laid. I just care why the customer might value that egg over a different egg. And guess what? The reason why I don't care why the egg got laid, back to your, hey, during diagnosing, you never talked about anything technical. Well, it's because the customer doesn't care. The customer doesn't understand it. They only care what you know until they know you know, and then they're good. They might test you on something to understand something to see if your answer sounds legit. They might not even know if your answer is legit. But people read body language and we check people out all the time. Okay, this is really powerful. So when you're in the situation of selling whatever you're selling or offering whatever service you're, and this could be, by the way, on a direct mailer. This could be in an interview with a future employee. It's not limited to just transactional making money sales. This is propositioning value for something. I heard somebody say something one time and it kind of stuck with me, and then it brought me to this thought. And I must have said this 15 years ago, and I'll never forget it because my buddy documented it and reminds me of it all the time. He's like, remember that time you said, but it is that there is something being sold in every conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's how cool we are, how great of a parent we are, whatever it is. And you got the one-uppers in the world. They're always selling hard, right? It's more obvious. And so value proposition is something we all do naturally. We're constantly exchanging value. But how do we stack it?
Mm-hmm.
How do we actually stack it? So let's go back. Let's use a couple of examples. Let's say we're selling that insurance. And the person that I'm working with is really concerned about their 16-year-old. This is going to raise my rates with a 16-year-old. And so we're having that discussion and we're talking about that. So now I know I've got that. I've got this concern of price. And then I've got this reality of a product. And so one of the things that I might do is, knowing that the insurance is going to go up, I may leverage this in this kind of a way. Hey, look, for the state minimum insurance, and forgive me, I'm not an insurance person, but for the state, I bought enough. For the state minimum insurance, it's this price, which is kind of pricey. So if you're worried about spending money and you want to get a bang for your buck, the reason why the price is so much higher is because the risk is so much higher. And I know your kid's probably awesome and not going to make any mistakes, and I get that, but things can happen. And so for that reason, we oftentimes, because it's so much more expensive, we recommend going with a higher level of coverage. While it might be more money per month, it won't be more money if you have to live out the bad event. And that's just one example. In plumbing, here's another. In plumbing, people will complain about the price of a water heater. Well, if you've ever bought a water heater recently, you'll know that sometimes you can have some high water pressure issues or other things that come into play with plumbing that require additional services. And one of the things that I try to tell owners to do, and you could take any product or service and do this with, sell the burger, not the cheese. So if the burger costs you $3 and the cheese costs you 10 cents, don't charge people $15 for the burger and then 20 cents for the cheese. Just charge people $16, give them the cheese, give them the mayo, give them the bacon, and then that way they're getting more for their value. And then if you really want to take this thinking to the next level, you need to get good at a la carte value proposition. For example, in plumbing, when we talked about that water heater and then additional items, those additional items could be something as simple as a shutoff valve or additional piping. But guess what? That shutoff valve has value by itself, just like that slice of cheese would have value by itself, just like that avocado would have value by itself. If you go to the grocery store and buy an avocado, it's got value. If you go to the restaurant and you add it to your meal, it's got value. So you see how putting these items, this is how we'll summarize this, Ryan. Anybody, except with the exception of In-N-Out Burger, anybody going through a drive, because In-N-Out knows their value, anybody going through a drive-through, just add up the price for the fries, add up the price for the drink, add up the price of the burger, and it will be more expensive than the value menu price. And what they do is they're getting us to be okay with the value menu price. We go $11, that's not so bad because the burger's $8, the drink's $3, and then the fries are $3, so I'm actually getting the fries for free. Let's do a value meal.
Yeah.
I can tell you several times where I've spent the extra money for the fries and then thrown them away.
For us, it's usually the drink,
Right?
But I get it. I hear you. No, this is, oh my gosh. I know most people can't see this, but I have a page of notes here because there's so much value in what Chris is going through right now. I mean, I would say that you practice what you preach because I feel like you just kept stacking the value for us here. I love the way that you really break it down into those three pieces: relationship, diagnosing, and the value proposition.
Let me give everybody, if they're taking notes, that's a great reminder here. Let me give you guys just the bullet points really fast of how to do this.
Yeah.
So relationship is ICE, identify, connect, engage. Diagnosing is what's concerning them. Why are they calling me? Why am I here? And then what do they like and what do they don't like? And you can apply that to past services they've gotten from other companies or the old product versus the new product. But what's concerning them? What don't they like and what do they like? And then when it comes to value stacking, give them 3 options. Try to get creative at giving people 3 different choices. Give them an option, kind of like, here's what you originally asked for, but here's something a little bit better. Here's something a whole lot better.
I just wrote down good, better, best because I've heard that before. So I love it.
Cheese, pepperoni, supreme. I mean, just think about how the industry's, we got unleaded. What do they just call it mid, right? Mid unleaded and then premium, super unleaded.
I either by the bottom or the top.
Yeah,
like
my car always makes me do the top one. But yeah, it's like,
yeah.
So all we have to do is wrap our minds around the simplicity of it and not overcomplicate it. I know that there was a lot of information in there, but it was most mental. But it's really simple in process if we get it down.
I've heard this before, but selling is so much more psychology than it is actually having them write a contract and give you money. Like, it's just really being able to empathize, put yourself in their shoes and find out what's really important to them. I loved your example about the leaky toilet. Because I sit here and I'm like, oh, leaky toilet. I've got tile floors and we don't have mold problems out here in Arizona. So yeah, whatever. Let it drip for a while. Eventually it'll be a problem. But oh my gosh, if I had hardwood floors, I do not want that dripping one bit. Or if I have little kids and it's a slip thing, I mean, all of a sudden, like the reason I want that fixed is so different for everybody. I mean, to me, that was like my big takeaway on this whole thing.
Oh, if you just think that, I don't care if you're a dentist or an insurance rep, if you're selling roofs, if you're selling solar panels, if you're painting houses, the reason the customer has you there is equally as important, maybe even more important than whatever service or product you offer, believe it or not. Because the reason they buy it will have way more value than the tangible solution. I tell plumbers all the time, they're service plumbers. And service plumbers, man, if you guys know that industry, they know their value. They got value. But plumbers don't necessarily have value. Well, what I mean by that is the plumbing by itself doesn't have a ton of value. You go get a job in the plumbing world as a laborer on a job site and doing construction, $25-$30 an hour. But a service plumber is going to make 6 figures a year if they're doing it right. Well, where's that extra value coming from? And it's all from the relational side of it, the mindset side of it, the sales side of it. And so, Brian, what I realized is that everyone has a problem and everyone has a solution. And so the person with the problem gets to pick who's going to solve it. And so that's what we're after. Yeah. Pick me. Not what do I offer, but pick me.
Wow. Especially in service contract. We work with a lot of service contractors as well. And so often they spend time coaching their service technicians. Hey, when it's a $4 part, but it's costing $250 to install, here's how you sell it. But what you're saying, no, we don't go that way. That's too late at that point. We just need to be providing the value and really understanding the customer. And
yes.
Sell it.
And then you get all these people that sell their service and product based on how difficult or how hard it is or how unique it is. And then what you do is you have a bunch of customers that are analyzing, is it really that difficult? Is it really that hard? Did it really take that long of a time? And then they complain about the price afterwards because it wasn't what you sold it on. If you start selling the solution, they stop paying attention to that stuff. And then they start, did this actually solve my problem?
Yeah.
And if it did, then they got their money's worth. And one last thing too, it'd be remiss. The invoice, the receipt, is just as powerful as the estimate. What I mean by that is you have to write up a really good estimate, verbalize it, write it up, whatever. Your industry is different. Some servers, if we take the restaurant industry, they have a menu and then they communicate at the table. So everyone's got a little bit of a different style of communicating that estimate. But that's an estimate. Mm-hmm. When you buy it, then it becomes a receipt or an invoice. And that's just as powerful. And if you in the plumbing industry, what we'll find plumbers that will say, hey, I'll throw a free shutoff in, but all they write on the estimate or on the invoice is water heater, $2,200. They don't write in the extra work that they did. They don't write in. And so you need to a la carte every single thing you do with its full retail value. And then from there, show applied discounts. And you always need to have a reason why you're selling something. And you always have to have a reason why you're discounting something, or it just seems unauthentic.
Wow, still so much to unpack, but we are at time today, Chris. This was incredible. And by the way, if you're behind the windshield and you haven't been taking notes, this will be available on any podcast platform. But we also have show notes on our website, as well as links to Chris's website so you can learn more. Chris, how do people get a hold of you?
info@theplumbingsalescoach.com is probably the fastest way. Just email us info@theplumbingsalescoach.com. But we obviously have the Plumbing Sales Coach as a podcast. We're on all the major platforms, and then we're on Facebook, pretty predominantly dropping information, knowledge, tips. Chris Fresh.
Chris is all over LinkedIn too.
Yeah.
He blows up my feed daily with the great little one-liner tips that are just incredible, regardless of the industry you're in.
And I'll even say this, if we get enough requests, so this would require a few requests, but if you email us at info@theplumbingsalescoach to say, hey, would you be willing to throw together just a quick sales workshop or break this down a little bit more, I would do that just for your audience, Ryan. They'd have to reference this podcast, and then we'll just put together a free workshop for them, probably about a half hour to 60 minutes, and get some free training out there to the world.
I love it. Make sure you take Chris up on that. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't have to be in plumbing in order to get that. Take advantage of that, do you?
No, this would be a non-plumbing offer. Yeah, this would just be for anybody in any industry whatsoever that just says, hey, I'd love to learn more about sales and value stacking, and we'll put together something for you guys if there's enough of demand, for sure, 100%.
Awesome. Well, my team and I will work on that for sure, Chris. Thank you so much for being on the show today. For those of you that didn't catch it, we'll have all his information in the show notes so you can reach out and connect with Chris and his team. Thanks again, Chris.
Hey, thank you for letting me be on here. I love it.